Well, all the hassle is and John Click, but it's a kind of a G, is it? Clickers?
Okay, can you put those behind your back?
They write it, send it to me. Well, you guys go up there.
Okay, pretend you're having fun. Good.
Now I gotta get you to do my
This is the 3-minute speech.
I put it on
didn't write it down.
There's a table.
He's the best that's going to be up there.
Are you sure?
It says so.
Yeah, that guy doesn't fun. I'm gonna do it over the phone with that guy and call Frank. I don't give a damn. You know he's gonna make money. I guess for you too.
Lindsay, Joanne, Sylvie, Sylvia. Non. Non, ils doivent t'avoir mis les foulées, toi aussi.
Non, c'est un bon.
Joanne? Oh, je pensais que c'était Joanne qui était à côté de moi.
Sylvie Foley, t'es là.
Ah oui, moi je suis là. La tante Sylvia, Lindsay.
Veux-tu que j'apporte ça?
Hi. I don't know. That's me. Part 12. I used to work for Honda. No, is that right? Yeah, I worked for
We're making that just one of
Oh,
those.
that's right. I know who you are. We
Real
talked.
completed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there are really different people that do that.
Challenges, call them challenges. And the top survivors look like the winners.
There's past the age where
It's like Jay's.
where the pump would have opened up and it opened.
Yes.
We got another year.
I'm still working on this here. It's waiting until after
At least the corners up. Okay, bud. Yeah. Trust me, we have no money.
They're coming back strong. They're not spending.
I know.
That's a little bit tough one. It's very oh, good message.
We have St.
to the 18th Annual Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame Gala. Please welcome to the stage your Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Norris McDonald.
Good evening. I am delighted to act as your Master of Ceremonies once again for this, as Eric just said, 18th Annual Induction Gala. It's going to be our pleasure tonight to induct 7 spectacularly worthy Canadians and one of the great international stars to grace the racing stage here in Canada. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do this evening. We are going to induct the 7 Canadians, then we're going to have dinner. And during dessert, we are going to be entertained by a few words from our James Hinchcliffe, who's here tonight. After which, following dinner, we will induct Michael Andretti into the international category. Now on each table, incidentally, Michael has graciously offered to say a few words. On your table is a slip that you can fill out if you have a question for Michael. And I will pass on the questions to him and he'll answer a few. Now, if we can, we will have our parade of inductees. Ladies and gentlemen, from my left, your right, Rudy Bartling. Ben Doctor. Robin Edwards. Norm Ellefson. Richard Foley Jr. Paul S. Manson. Greg Stewart. And a man who needs no introduction, Michael Andretti. Gentlemen, if you could go to your tables, we will commence with the ceremony. Just while we have a second here, I will remind you that I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to take a look at the silent auction that is in operation at the back of the room. I'll be reminding you about the auction throughout the evening. There are some absolutely spectacular items up for sale, so I urge you all to bid high and bid often. I would like at this time to introduce you to the chairman of the Board of Directors of the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Dr. Hugh Scully.
Norris, thank you very much, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for this evening to celebrate some of those that have made such a tremendous contribution to motorsport in Canada, and in Michael Andretti's case, to motorsport not only in Canada but internationally. It's a great honor for us to have you with us tonight. One of the things I'd like to do very briefly, and Norris, I promise to be brief, is to introduce to you the Board of Directors of the Canadian Motorsport Heritage Foundation and Hall of Fame. The first name that I would bring up is that of Bob Armstrong. Now, Bob is not able to be with us tonight. He's undergone recently some very major cancer surgery. I'm able to tell you, however, that so far things are looking very good in his convalescence, and for those of you who know him, I think that'll be very reassuring. Tom Dickinson has made a tremendous contribution to the board. Ron Fellows, I think, is well known to many in the room and is one of Canada's outstanding drivers and ambassadors. Morris McKay from Calgary has made a tremendous contribution also. Duncan McEachern tries to keep us honest financially, and that is a challenge with this organization. Roger Peart is the president of ASN Canada and has made some great contributions in the discussions of the board. Roger. Tom Riley also preceded me as the chairman, has been with the board for some time and made a great contribution. New to the board, and somebody for whom we don't have a picture, is Daniel Thompson from Montreal. Had some interesting meetings in Montreal with the group there, and I think we can anticipate possibly the gala in Montreal next year, and great participation in terms of what's happening at that level. I'd like to mention a few people who have made a tremendous contribution over time. Many of you in the room know Rod Campbell, who's been involved in racing in many aspects over the years. Not able to be here from California because of some health concerns that he has, but sends his best wishes. Jim O'Donnell has been a giant in contribution to motorsport in Canada as well, and Jim has stepped off the board, again for some personal and health reasons, but continues to be a resource that's available to us. And Ali Jalali was on the board, made some contributions, hasn't been able to be very much with us in the last few years. And just in closing, Norris, quite apart from your own remarkable contribution to this evening, and certainly very much appreciated, I'd like to mention some very special people. And typically what they've done is plate themselves, in some cases, at the back of the room. Ralph Lucio and Fran Matsumoto, his partner. They are the core of this evening in terms of its organization and all of the logistics that are involved. And I will tell you that Sid Priddle is the general manager, Sid, of the organization, has done tremendous work over the last year. More will be said about Michael. Delighted, Michael, that you're with us tonight. Thank you very much for being here. You have a great following in Canada. And of course, Canadians are very excited about James Hinchcliffe and what he's done with the Andretti team. And James, we have great expectations for you when you come to Toronto. Many in the room will know that Ron Fellows and others have purchased Motorsport and are undertaking some tremendous resource changes there, and we're looking forward to that very much. So Morris, my understanding is that you will recognize some of the others who've made a great contribution tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, that really terminates my remarks. Thank you very much for being here. We're pleased to have you with us. Thank you.
To rise and be recognized. We have the first rallyist to be inducted into the Hall a number of years ago. He's here tonight, Walter Boyce. Anybody who was at Pinecrest Speedway and the CNE Speedway, and then for a number of years at Motorsport, the flagman out there, probably the highest jumping checkered flag man in the world. He's in here in the Hall of Fame, and he's here tonight. Say hello to Wally Branston. We're fortunate tonight to have two members of the Hall of Fame who run, for all intents and purposes, national and international racing here in Canada. From ASN FIA Canada, please say hello to Paul Cook and Roger Peart. This gentleman was a driving force behind the Hall of Fame in its early years and was the 1967 Canadian driving champion, Ross de St. Croix. A great champion of the old Can-Am series. All of us have wonderful memories of that wonderful series. He's here tonight, Horst Kroll. Now we know that the National Stock Car Series in Canada is the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series. The man who unified stock car racing in Canada and ran it for many years as CASCAR before passing off to NASCAR is here with us, Tony Novotny. This gentleman is a great contributor at the moment to the Hall of Fame, and a great Canadian boating champion, Mark Rothermel. I'm going to introduce him again because his name is on my list. A great contributor to Canadian motorsport, the man who started the Race Physicians Association in Canada, Dr. Hugh Scully. And also with us tonight, one of the great characters in the sport, a great entertainer in the kart paddock for years, and more recently the Indy Racing League and then the IndyCar. In fact, he was the king of the owners of Indy Lights for years, Brian Stewart. Now, unfortunately, and when I say unfortunately, we only have one national racing series at the moment, but it's a dandy. And the Canadian Tire, NASCAR Canadian Tire Series is something that all Canadians should be most proud. And we are so fortunate tonight to have with us a two-time national champion. He will last won the championship a year ago. Please say hello to 2011 NASCAR Canadian Tire Racing Series champion, Scott Steckley. Scott also happens to be sponsored by Canadian Tire, and as we all know, Canadian Tire is partnering with Ron Fellows and his partners in the recreation of Motorsport, and it's now, of course, known as the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. But Canadian Tire's involvement in Canadian racing goes back years and years, and we're so very grateful for their contributions and for their presence here tonight. Now, we've got the road racers, we've got the stock car racers, and some of us here kind of like the dirt tracks. And yeah. And one of the finest small, short dirt tracks on the continent is owned and operated by this gentleman who's a racing sprint car champion in his own right, but has been named twice World of Outlaws Promoter of the Year, and Tony Stewart's best friend at the moment. Say hello, please, to Glenn Stiers. We will now begin the induction ceremony. I would like the presenters to come to the podium. Cam Newlands, John Waldy, Walter Boyce, and Tim Miller. Our first inductee is Rudy Bartling.
Years of racing behind him in 1981, but he had another 20 to go. He has been described as Canada's most experienced endurance racer, and Sebring was his second home. He started that Florida Endurance Classic 17 times between 1972 and 1996, the most of any Canadian driver and 5th all time. This new inductee hired himself out for various racing teams throughout his career, driving a series of Porsches not only at Sebring, but other major events, like the IMSA Camel GT Series, the BF Goodrich Sundown Grand Prix, and the Molly Slip Endurance Series. He began racing in the early 60s and was the 1962 under 2-liter Canadian champion in his Porsche Carrera. After numerous victories, including the Oak Cup at Motorsport, he placed 4th in the 1968 Road America race with co-driver Ludwig Heimrath in a McLaren Elva. In his first appearance at Sebring, he placed 7th overall and took 4 top 10 finishes, his best a 6th overall in 1977. During his career, this inductee proved he could work on cars almost as well as he could race them. He turned the wrenches for noted California Porsche racer Vasek Pollock, first in 1965 and again in 73 with a Porsche 917 Turbo driven by Formula One ace Jody Scheckter. He continued to race at endurance contests in the 80s and into the 90s, driving with Klaus Beitzek. The team won 4 of 5 Molly Slip races in 1997 to win the championship. The same year, he was campaigning a Porsche 911 of his own, placing 3rd in the Canada GT Challenge Cup. His success as a racer is only part of his career. Along with his mechanical skills, respect from his fellow racers and teams mark his outstanding achievements in Canadian motorsport. Please welcome to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Rudy Bartling.
I got it. Oh boy. Hello? Good evening, everybody. I would like to thank the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame for this wonderful honor given to me. It has been my pleasure being involved in motorsports for over 50 years. I have raced at almost every racetrack in North America and in many different countries, and have met very many wonderful people through the sport. And I loved every minute of it. I want to thank all those people throughout the years I was involved with and who helped me to fulfill my dream. Thank you also to my family and friends and for their support and for being here tonight. I believe the greatest friends you ever will have are the friends you make in motorsports. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Our next inductee is G. Ben Doctor.
Activities, this North Dakota native started to race stock cars on the dirt ovals of Alberta and Montana. He also competed as an IMCA open-wheel racer and in the Players GM Challenge. The former oil field roughneck also fielded teams in the local stock car arena. But his goal in racing was to provide others with a facility, and the original plan of a small oval track grew to a speed plant that would become a major showplace for motorsport in Western Canada. Preliminary work started in 1982 and the oval track was done in 85. By 1987, and using his own capital, he was ready to share his dream with the multi-purpose Race City complex in Calgary. Along with the half-mile oval, Race City boasted a 2.1-mile road course and a quarter-mile drag strip. For the next 20 years, fans were able to watch their racing heroes in various sanctions, including NASCAR, the NHRA, the IRL, and CASCAR. Fans were able to watch such notable drivers as Bobby Unser, Michael Waltrip, Mark Martin, Shirley Muldowney, and Douglas Snake Prudhomme. Along with the sports cars, dragsters, and stock cars, motorcycle racing was also a huge attraction at Race City. Until 1995, when he sold the facility, our inductee was at Race City every weekend as the track's biggest fan and tireless promoter. During his time with Race City, he brought the best in Major League Racing to Calgary, the province of Alberta, and Western Canada as one of the country's biggest boosters and promoters of motorsport. Please welcome to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Ben Doctor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me this time. Rudy just stole my punchline, though. That's great, though. That's great. I'm going to just take a quick look at my notes here, and I'll forget half of what I got to say anyhow, and then we'll get on with things. But this is I'm truly honored and humbled by this recognition. Motorsports has been in my blood ever since I was a very young man. And one thing led to another. As just a novice racer, I decided that going out of town every weekend to race was probably too expensive, so we'd build a small oval. Well, one thing led to another, and you saw what it turned out to be. So it's hard to hold down. Anyway, I'd like to thank the present board and the past boards and the chairmen for launching the great effort of holding together and putting some structure into the heritage and the rich tradition of motorsports that somehow seems to get lost as the wind blows, things change. And I met some, when we were out in the foyer out there and I was talking to the other honorees, there's a lot of history with each one of them gentlemen. Me, I started a little later in racing. I'm just a novice racer. But I always prided myself in promotion. And so the racetrack idea kind of fit in. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Anyway, I want to finish thanking the people for all their hard work in preserving motorsports in Canada and in North America for that matter. I know it's a title, it probably seems like there's no end to the requirements for capital. There's no end for qualified people to help you with different tasks. And after they're over, everyone goes home and we have to thank the people, the very people that put this event on, that do the very tasks that we take for granted. So thank you. In further thanks, I'd like to thank the effort that was put forth and put my name forth, that is, from the group of racers from Western Canada, led by Norbert Glimpel, and thank you, Norbert. In any way, as you can see, I'm going to keep my day job. Public speaking probably isn't my profession. Anyway, I'd like to also offer my congratulations to my fellow inductees and thank them for all they've done for motorsports over the years. Thank you, gentlemen. And then I want to move on to, let's see what we got here. This isn't going to be real long. All right. I've already covered most of it. Anyway, it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey when I look at it. From my normal activities in business and everything, this was really a wonderful relaxation and distraction. On the other hand, you know, a promoter, he's there early in the morning, he's there late at night. He spends $50,000 on a weekend, and Saturday morning it decides to rain, and Sunday it rains, and nobody races. So there's a lot that can be said for racetrack promoters. Ron's going to find out in his new endeavor. Good luck, and I know Ron personally. He was my instructor. To become a sports car racer, I had to take a class through Ron, and I did, and I was very struck by Ron. Ron is a man very diligent, very driven to do a good job in what he does. He worked us hard, and when we got all done after a long day, he made us walk the track. I thought to myself, does this guy get paid extra for this? You know, but you could see in Ron, he loved what he did, and it was important to him to give you all the knowledge he has, and believe me, this man has a lot. So thanks, Ron, and good luck. To conclude, before I go into that part, I want to say one thing. If I can get you folks tonight, you guys, to help me, I don't have a glass, but I think we should make a toast to the lovely ladies in this room who a lot of times stay home when we go racing, give us extra effort to help us support our sport. So could we toast the ladies, please? And to the... So they're the girls that stay home and rock the cradle, and we go have fun sometimes. So thanks a lot, ladies. Anyway, I'd like to thank the total racing community, all racers of all kinds. We had drag racers, sports car racers, motorcycle racers, stock car racers, new ones, old ones, well seasoned and so forth. But I'd like to thank all my sponsors over the years. I made some wonderful affiliations with sponsors, racers in general. A lot of the volunteers became very good friends. Racing cannot survive without a good support from volunteers. This is so important. I'd like to thank all the sanctioning bodies. people like Paul Cook and all the people that make the whole ball turn. I'd like to thank the safety people, which is so important in motorsports. But most of all, I'd like to take this moment now to thank the racing community in general for helping me live my dream. That's a little hard to say. I had a lot of fun. It was a beautiful ride. And then I'd like to thank my lovely wife and my family for helping me as well. God bless you.
Our next inductee is Robin Edwards.
The sport of road rallying would not be where it is today without the involvement of our next inductee. Not only did he compete in rallies for over half a century, he was also instrumental in writing rules and procedures that set the standard for licenses with the Canadian Automobile Sports Club. He was born in England in 1930. He was an athlete during his early years. He received his honours mathematics degree from King's College in London before taking employment as a rocket and jet propulsion scientist with a Napier motor car firm. He and his family immigrated to Canada, where he worked for Canadair Bombardier in Montreal and then Northern Electric, working on everything from turbo compound diesels to rocket engines for the aircraft and aerospace industry. In the late 1950s, he joined the Canadian Automobile Club and through the Sports Car Club of Montreal began to compete in rallying and economy events. He set a new record for gas mileage, once recording 90 miles per gallon, that's gallons not liters, in 1959 with a Renault Dauphine. Over the next several decades, he navigated or co-drove for over 100 drivers, including Henry Taylor, Roger Clark, John Buffum, and Eric Jones of the U.S., and prominent Canadian drivers like Walter Boyce, Jean-Paul Perdusset, and Randy Black. Highlights included a first-in-class in the 1962 and 1966 Shell 4000, Quebec Regional Championship Navigator titles in 1960, 63, and 65, and 4 first-place finishes in the Rallye de Neige. But the competition side is only half his story. He was vice president of the CASC from 1975 to 1977 and brought forth many changes to the sport of rallying, including recovery points, timing methods, and scoring procedures. He was also the national scorer and issued the CASC rally press releases. Although he retired from his day job in 1998, this inductee continues to work within the Canadian rally community in organization, administration, and getting into that co-driver seat in competition. A warm Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame welcome, please, for Robin Edwards.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am so pleased to see this wonderful turnout of so many people I've enjoyed in motorsport, working with you, against you, and always enjoying myself. It has been a wonderful thing, and I would like to thank Walter Hare for supplying some of that wonderful, exciting information about rallying that you just saw. I think that Alan Sanderson did a great job of showing what an exciting sport that I competed in. And when I started rallying in Canada in '59, it was I soon settled in the right-hand seat, the navigator's seat. I learned that the hard way. I rolled the Renault, no one about that. So that's where I could do the most good, because at that time in rallying in Canada, the driver really didn't count for very much. It was I'm not joking, it was the navigator who largely determined the outcome of the crew. When closed road stages were introduced in the Shell 4000 World Championship, RAC World Championship Rally in 1964, it opened up a new era which would involve the driver and the car's ability and performance to a far greater extent. And this was a very important thing. It occurred to me, and I was involved in organizing national championship rallies at that time. It occurred to me that we needed something akin to the closed stages in our national rally series. I invented a thing called the selectives, which were akin to closed road stages without all the large expenses that were involved with that, and introduced those, 31 of selectives, in the 1968 Dow Quebec National Championship Rally. They quickly caught on, and by 73 we had an all-stage format for our national championship. And that, in the book, In Like a Lamb and Out Like a Lion, the story of John Buffon, Tom Grimshaw describes the introduction of those selectives as the beginning of a new era of high-speed rallying in North America. Also, that was also further clarified in David Charter's history, what's it called? The Checkered Flag, which was a history of the CASC from 1951 to 91, and alluded to also in the Barker's article, Robin Edwards, the ultimate right-hand man, in the Canadian Motorsport magazine in '84. So I was credited with having made the driver more important and the car more important, which is essential for gaining manufacturers' involvement and sponsorship. And we all know in motorsport how important that is, sponsorship and publicity. And this thing we're doing tonight, I hope, is contributing greatly to that, and that we will get some good media coverage from this as much as we can, because we always need to encourage the manufacturers and the sponsors. So I reduced the role of the navigator to a co-driver. You might say, what does a co-driver do? Well, I had a long spiel about what the co-driver does, but and you'll be surprised at things he has to do at times. You also all know from watching TV that he reads pace notes. Well, pace notes are relatively new in Canada, except for when we had FIA championship rallies here. And there has to be a lot of thought to reading pace notes, by the way. It's not as simple as it looks when you watch TV. You've got to be in the right place in your notes. You've got to get the rhythm of the road and also the reaction of your driver. And the reaction of each driver is different. So you must adapt if you're going to have if you're going to co-drive for a lot of different drivers as I have done. This whole... Sorry? Do you have a question? So that is the role of the co-driver. Could also run to other things like in the 62 Shell 4000, I held a gas tank with a direct feed to the carburetor for a large part of until the end of one of the legs of the rally. At the top of a mountain with Walter Boyce, I won't say what car, I had to crimp the brake line to the rear brakes so that we could have some brakes in the front wheels driving down the mountain. And then on the stage down the mountain, I'm yelling at Walter to go faster all the way, knowing the brakes are going. And hey, all told, we just had so much fun. And now I get this wonderful privilege, after all this wonderful time of doing what I love doing, and with such great people, of being honored in this manner, for which I thank you all very much. I also want to thank all my drivers. I can't mention over 100, but I particularly want to mention Walter Boyce, for whom I co-drove for about 11 years in the National Championship and in a couple of FIA World Championship events. We had a ball. And my current driver, who's kept me busy in club events and winter rally series, organizing and competing for over 15 years, and he's helping to keep me young now. And when we can get together next, we'll be out there rallying still and enjoying it. And I really want to thank this organization, all the present people who are running it, and all the past. I know it only started in '93, but they're just doing a great job, and it will help put motorsport, I know, into the public's eye more, and that's what we really need. And I'm sorry that Bob Armstrong is not able to be here tonight, and I just would like to wish him a speedy recovery. So, thank you all very much.
An outstanding short track open wheel racer, this Edmonton-based driver rose to prominence in 1952 at Calgary's Springbank Speedway when he was 20. His career continued almost until the turn of the new century. He was a dynamo in sprint car and super modified action throughout Western Canada and the Northwestern U.S. He also raced Fender cars in the NASCAR West Stock Car Series, winning his fair share of events in the 1970s. But his sprint car and super modified racing is what he's best known for. He won the Canadian-American Modified Racing Championship 3 times in 1966, 67, and 69. He captured some of the biggest events in super modified racing, including the Copper Cup in Salt Lake City, the Billy Foster Memorial in Victoria, and the Gold Cup in Edmonton. But he also excelled in sprint cars. The Minnesota State Fair was holding an event in 1969, which was huge. 143 sprinters trying to make a field of 44. The event was staged in 4 races, a trio of 50 lappers, then the big 200-lap A main. Well, our inductee won the first and second 50, placed 4th in the 3rd, and won the 200-lap A main as well. This was accomplished with a traditional roadster, but in '71 he showed up at the fairgrounds with an unconventional rear-engine car. Well, the car was very quick and handled very well. There was no clutch or starter. He had to wait for a push truck when he spun on some oil on the track. The car did become successful with impressive outings and victories. Along with the super modified racing, he also raced in USAC events in the Northwestern U.S. with the likes of Tom Sneva, Gordon Johncock, and Mario Andretti. This inductee has received numerous accolades for his success, including induction into the Inland Empire Motorsport Hall of Fame. his involvement with the Edmonton Kinsman Sports Celebrity Dinner, and his guest speaking appearances at racing and auto-related functions are renowned. And we are proud to welcome to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Norm Ellefson.
Before I start, I have to say one thing. This is the best looking group of racers I've ever seen in my life. Give yourself a hand. I would like to thank the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame and its board of directors for this very prestigious honor. I can't tell you how much this award means to me. It's a culmination of 30 years of just keep racing and you'll get to the top. Well, this is surely the top for me. Thank you. I would also like to thank Gail Rhodes of Spokane, Washington, who did due diligence by digging out 2 pages of results out of some musty old scrapbooks that got me here. And Gene McKay of Spokane for his help on this project. It started with a man by the name of George LeMay, who is deceased now, but was a recipient of this award. He picked me out of a crowd of jalopy drivers in Calgary in 1952. Said, "Come with me, kid, I'm gonna make a racer out of you." Thank you, George. Well, I bummed around a couple of years after that and wound up in Edmonton driving a super modified for Zane Feldman from Crosstown Motors. Some of you may remember Zane. He was one of the group that put together the Edmonton Oilers hockey team and hired a guy named Wayne something. Wayne. Oh, Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, that was the guy. I told Zane there was an organization starting called CAMRA, the Canadian American Modified Racing Association. And they were going to create a traveling circus racing in Edmonton, Salt Lake City, Boise, Seattle, Victoria, and so on. And what would he think if I took the car and tried a couple of those on the weekends? For a minute, he looked across his desk at me and he said, "You know, Norm, I don't sell a hell of a lot of cars in Boise, Idaho." Anyway, we worked out a deal. I could run the car out of town on weekends, but I had to be home for Wednesday night in Edmonton. So it was race Wednesday night, load up, drive 1,000 miles down the road to Boise or Portland or wherever, race 2 days, and then drive 1,000 miles home, be back in Edmonton for Wednesday night. Who wouldn't want to do that instead of settle down, get a job, and have a life, you know? After a couple of seasons of that, I got noticed by Bob Morgan from Seattle. And Bob put me in a car that was capable of running up front, and we won some races. And in 1966, I won the Canadian American Modified Racing Association Championship for the first time. A couple of more guys I'd like to thank are Chuck and Jim Warren of Spokane, Jim Tipke and his crew from Spokane, Don Wilbur and his team from Spokane, and Dick Flynn for his engine magic over the years. And you can throw in a couple of ex-wives who couldn't stand the ego any longer, or the telling of that favorite race story for the 135th time. One thing about barnstorming the West is the miles on the road. We started the last weekend of March every year, finished the last week of September, racing on the average of 65 to 70 times. That was in Alberta, British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, California, Arizona, and Minnesota. And all those roads led me here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this honor. Excuse me. Again, I'd like to thank the Canadian Motorsports Board of Directors, my patron, Nate Salter, and I hope he's feeling better. And Bob Armstrong, the guy that gave me that call way back in December. Get back, Bob, we need you here. You know, thank you one and all.
Thank you, Norm. Yeah, I identify with that. My first 2 wives heard all my racing stories too. Can we now ask the next 3 presenters to come up? Mark Rothermel, Bill Divikoff, and Brad Brown. And just a bit of business here. The voiceovers done for these tributes are done every year by a wonderful contributor to the success of motor racing, motorsport generally in Canada. You can hear him on the Fan 590 and Raceline Radio, and he's here tonight. Can we have a nice hand for Eric Thomas? And of course, somebody has to write the words that Eric records, and they are done every year by motorsport reporter for the Hamilton Spectator, Tim Miller. Tim, if you could just take a bow. And in my zeal to keep the program moving right along, I have been reminded by my friend John Waldy that I failed to introduce you to two other honorable members of the Hall of Fame who are here tonight. You can't think of Cayuga Speedway, that legendary place, without thinking of the guy who built it. And please say hello to Bob Slack. And also from a famous drag racing family. They're all legendary. And in fact, this gentleman is still knee-deep in the sport, running the Pro Modified Drag Racing Association. An honorable member of the Hall of Fame, Bruce Mellenbacher. Bruce. Our next inductee is Richard Foley Jr.
He's been a racer, a promoter, and a car owner from Montreal, but he is best known as the first Canadian to compete in the biggest stock car race of them all, the great North American race, the Daytona 500. Born in Halifax in 1932, our inductee raced in the late 40s on tracks around his Montreal home at the speedways of Bouvray and Drummondville and Rawdon. He was also a stunt driver of note during the 1950s. In the late 50s, he also raced on the famed NASCAR Daytona Road and Beach Course in 1957 and 1958, finishing that race 19th in the last year of the circuit before it moved to the high-banked oval. This inductee made the 1959 field of 59 starters and was in 4th place with his Chevy until a mechanical problem sent him to the pits for 20 minutes and he placed 32nd. He also ran in the 1960 Daytona 500 and took 10th spot in the Sportsman Modified race, driving a 57 Chevy. During the 1960 season, he also won the track modified titles at Bouvray and Drummondville. In '61, he retired from active racing and promoted the sport of the Montreal area throughout the decade. Over 30 years later, in 2002, he purchased a sportsman car and went cash car racing with his nephew Danny Foley behind the wheel. 2 years later, he purchased a second sportsman car, this time with Hugo Vanini driving. In 2006, he acquired the Quebec City area 5/8 mile oval Circuit Saint-Croix and renamed it Riverside Speedway in honor of his father Richard, who constructed the original Riverside in St. Vincent de Paul, Quebec, and continues to operate that facility to this day. Would you please welcome to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Richard Dick Foley Jr.
Well, I gotta say it's a great pleasure and an honor for me to stand before you and to be inducted into the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my wife, family, and friends for having dedicated their time and effort to research, collect, organize, and present information that was gathered to the members of the Hall of Fame. I would also like to thank the Nomination, Selection, and Gala Committee for welcoming me into the Foundation. During my years of being a driver, car owner, promoter, organizer, and track owner, I made no effort to record any of my endeavors. This made it more difficult for them to research, verify, and gather whatever information they could from the past. Rest assured that when my brother and I shaped an oval track in a field for us and some of our friends to race on, next to the home we lived in on the family farm situated in St. Vincent de Paul, which is a community just north of Montreal, we had no idea as to what extent we would be involved in what was known as stock car racing. This was in the late 40s and early 50s, when we were in our late teens and early 20s. This led us to get involved in a more organized form of racing on mostly half-mile dirt tracks, some of it which were converted training or racetracks that was used by horses. My father was an enthusiastic race fan, and when he had the opportunity and time, he would attend the races that we would participate in. This eventually led him to build a 1/3 mile paved track on the family farm. The track was completed in 1959, and the races were sanctioned by NASCAR. The track was known as Riverside Speedway. In closing, I humbly accept this honor and will willingly share it with my family and friends, both living and deceased, who are and were very important to me, and due to their support and enthusiasm, very instrumental to my being here this evening. Thank you very much. Merci.
Our next inductee is Paul S. Manson.
When this inductee rolled his VW in only his second rally in 1960, the Toronto resident decided he would make a better navigator co-driver, and thus began one of the most illustrious careers in Canadian rally history. This winner of many national, regional, and club rallies during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s competed in 80-plus events in 1964, 65, and 67. His resume includes winning the Fiddler Trophy, the Canadian National Rally Championship in 1967, the Wilson Trophy in 64, 65, and 67, and 4 top 10 finishes in the prestigious Shell 4000 in the 1960s. Not just competing in rallies, he was instrumental in their organization and marshalling. He was the national and regional rally steward with the CASC in the 60s and 70s, and contributed to print and broadcast media on the Canadian rally scene. His passion took him outside of Canada, helping to score rallies in the US in the 1990s. He also competed in the Total Rally in South Africa in 1974. An accountant by trade, he believes his background was of benefit when working with Hoyer watches, Curta calculators, the Tripmaster, and a large collection of topographic maps. And as demonstrated by his winning record, his numbers added up every time. And we are pleased to add to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Paul S. Manson.
Not that I'm accustomed to public speaking, but I want to thank the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame for this honor. I won't say I humbly accept it. I'm proud to accept it, and I relish in accepting it. I remember I remember a lot of things that went on in the past. I remember the Lobster Rally, I was with John Medwell. He was driving LC, our Nissan Datsun 510. And John was cleaning the windshield and waxing the car, and he couldn't be bothered to worry about making sure that it was mechanically fit. I remember John Bird, an inductee who's here tonight, wasn't mentioned. We had a deal. We would either tell each other the truth, or we would say nothing to each other. He was silent an awful lot. I remember Klaus Ross in 1960, I think it was 67. He wanted to go up the Coquihalla Valley to see if the road was open before the Shell 4000. And we're flying up there in a one-engine plane, and the pilot says, hey, there's a weather front behind us, and I don't know if we have enough gas to go around the top. I remember Eddie Cole and Helmut Teubler. We saw a picture. They won hundreds of trophies. They took care of our Datsun 411 in 1967. John rallied with them, I rallied with them. We won a lot of rallies that year. I remember Carl Schultz, we were on the Shell 4000. He reached in the back to get his sunglasses and then rolled the car over just before Kingston. We broke the seal on the alternator. And when we got to Montreal, I forget who it was, Jim Gunn's assistant said, okay, I see it was frayed, but it wasn't cut. And we were second. Until we got to the finish, we were third. Jim Gunn overruled his scrutineers. We should have been second, we were second, but I know that, no one else does. I remember Fritz Hawker, he passed away last year. We went in the winter rally in his VW. That was the year of the thaw. We went through so many water holes. I thought there was so much ice under the car. I thought the ice weighed more than the car weighed. I don't know how the hell we got to the finish, but we did. We finished the rally. I think it was Fritz's driving. I also went in the Shell 4000 with him and had a great time. He was a good competitor. I remember Walter Boyce. We went to South Africa together, and we drove through the woods and up this big mountain range. And Walter, when we got to the top, he looked out and he said, Paul, what's on your side? I said, nothing, it's straight down. He said, it's the same on my side. We were driving on the top of the mountain, down both sides, thousands of feet, until we got to the tree line on the other side. I wanted Ian Tuggle to be here tonight. He and I rallied through the 70s and won the regional championship a few times. So unfortunately, he had a heart problem a couple of weeks ago, and the doctor wouldn't let him come up to Toronto. Thank you, Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I really do treasure this. I'm glad after 50 years in motorsport, I got some more recognition. Thank you.
And our next inductee is Greg Stewart.
Not many racers win the first time behind the wheel of any race car, but his victory in the 1976 Sportsman Series race at Atlantic Speedway was just the beginning of an illustrious career in stock car racing for this Halifax native. Born in 1957, this inductee watched older brother Jim race in the early 70s, but by 76, he himself was ready. He was a natural on the paved ovals, winning his first title in 76 with a Sportsman Championship. The team decided to step up to the modified ranks in Eastern Canada and the Northeastern U.S., along with some trips to Southern Ontario, where they found they could compete with some of the best in short track racing. When NASCAR was established in 1983, the family team with Greg driving and Jim crew chiefing purchased a new Blair Cook's car, and the stage was set. He won 2 International 200 events at River Glade in 1983 and 84 against the likes of current Hall of Famers Junior Hanley, Don Biederman, and Rollie McDonald. He dominated the series for the next several years, winning the NASCAR Points Championship in 1983, 87, 92, 93, and 1995. But the team set its sights outside of local racing during this period, and he took second in the prestigious Oxford 250 in Maine in 1994. He also won the Riverside 250 twice in 86 and 93, and to show he could turn right as well as left in a race car, won the Halifax Street Course Moosehead Grand Prix in 91, 92, and 1994. With over 100 features to his credit, he was one of the best drivers ever to come out of the Maritimes. After a race at Scotia Speed World in Halifax 2002, he decided to end his career and hang up his helmet. In 2010, he was inducted into the Maritime Motorsports Hall of Fame, and we are pleased to honor him here tonight. Please welcome to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Greg Stewart.
Good evening, and thank you very much. First, I would like to thank Dr. Hugh Scully and the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame board members for the continued support and recognition of Canadian motorsports achievements in both local and national levels. I would also like to congratulate my fellow 2012 inductees, Hall of Fame inductees, all of whom are well respected in the racing communities. I'm overwhelmed by receiving this award, giving the list of past recipients. To be recognized and acknowledged by the racing community is my greatest achievement. It's hard to believe my 26 years in racing has come full circle. I vividly remember in '76, my first year in racing. The year stands out for me for one particular reason. My dad, who was the biggest supporter, passed away in the grandstands with a heart attack that night during my feature race. This tragedy affected me deeply and set the tone for the level of commitment and dedication required to support the vision I had for my career. I know my dad was there through me with all 26 years of racing and provided the inspiration I needed to challenge myself to succeed both on and off the track. I could have not achieved these accomplishments on my own, and would like to acknowledge those special people who faithfully gave up their time to help keep the car in championship form. These include many faithful crew members and sponsors. Accepting this award tonight would not be complete without thanking the loyal fans who supported Stewart Racing and the local tracks over the years. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my family and friends, some of whom are with us here this evening, the continued support throughout the years, and a special thank you to Pat Lawrence, my brother Jim, my wife Louise, as this night means much more than you're here to share it with me. I would also like to dedicate this to my dad. I know is smiling down on me this evening. Without him, I couldn't have done this. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
On behalf of the Board of Directors, I wish to congratulate and welcome the newest group of honorable members to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. Your achievements and contributions to your chosen sport have been immeasurable. I have to go off script here for just a moment. I nominated Dick Foley for the first time about 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. And I'm so pleased to see him here tonight. And since NASCAR is always talking about the big one, I think the guy who triggered the biggest one deserves to be in this Hall of Fame. I'm also having a bad night in another area. I'm the wise guy who says, I'm going to recognize all the members of the Hall of Fame who were inducted previously, who are here tonight. Of course, I slipped up with Bruce Mellenbacher and Mr. Slack. It's now been brought to my attention, actually during an induction here a moment ago, that John Bird is here tonight, one of the great rally drivers in Canadian rally history. John, can you stand up, please? And of course, one of the great Now, did I miss anybody else? Let's just get it over with now. We're going to have our dinner here. We're going to induct Michael Andretti after dinner. There are slips of paper on the tables. If you have a question for Michael, he's agreed to answer some questions afterwards. Also, at the conclusion of the evening, and please don't bother him during dinner, Michael will go to a table at the back, talk to you personally, sign a few autographs. In the meantime, don't forget the silent auction, bid often, bid high, and enjoy your dinner. We'll see you in a while. James fell in love with car racing when he was just a wee boy, watching Michael Andretti race on television. Little did he know that at some point in time he would be working for him. This isn't going over the way it's supposed to be going. Okay, I'm supposed to introduce James Hinchcliffe. At this point in the evening, James, who has a handheld microphone, is supposed to interrupt me.
You mean like this?
And, oh yes,
Norris, is this what you were looking for?
Okay, James.
You wanted me to step in and say, Norris, quit droning on and telling the same old boring story that you try and tell every year.
Every year we do this. And I didn't know whether you got the cue, James.
I'm not usually good at hitting my marks or getting my cues. My timing's a bit off sometimes.
Ladies and gentlemen, to say a few words, please welcome James Hinchcliffe.
I'm sure the last thing anybody wants to do after a nice dinner is listen to me talk. I'm sure you're all ready to sort of get on with things, but who is that atrocious looking being up there? That's Manica, by the way. That's my alter ego. It's funny, you know, they asked me to come up here and just sort of speak a couple words, and they said, you know, James, nothing big, like 2 or 3 minutes, maybe talk about what it's like to drive for Michael Andretti. And I'm like, I was given a time frame and a topic. I felt like I was back in grade 6 giving my first speech in English class. So I'm James Hinchcliffe, and this is what it's like to drive for Michael Andretti. But no, seriously, it's funny, I was reading this, and in here, it says, James Hinchcliffe, 2012 career update. So I think my update is, it looks like I might actually have a career in this business after all. It's been a remarkable 2012 for me so far. It's been a whirlwind couple months, and you know, it all kicked off by being signed with Andretti Autosport in the GoDaddy car, which, you know, was a huge win for us. After, you know, the season we had last year was pretty good, but, you know, team closed. I was sort of out of a job again, and Michael stepped up and offered me a position, and so far so good. We've had a little bit of success in the first couple races, and season's still early. We're still learning a little bit, so I'm assuming and hoping that we can just keep pressing on and going forward. There's a lot of challenges this year with the new car, the new engine, for me, a new team. but it's a tremendous group of people, and you know that's a big part of it. Not only at Andretti Autosport, but also with GoDaddy, who put up with me doing crap like that. And no, the wig will probably not be making any more appearances for those of you that have been asking. It's kind of funny to think actually we're here because today actually was the first race of the Toronto Kart Club's 2012 season. And it's funny to think that 16 years ago, around this time, I took part in my first race. And it's weird to think a decade and a half later, driving an Indy car, coolest series in the world, one of the best teams, a legend for a boss. It's pretty cool to think of the path that we've come down and the trip that we've taken, largely due to my family, most of whom are sitting at table Lucky 13 back there. It's actually funny, I've got my first team owner and my current team owner in the same room. It's funny to see how far we've come. 25 feet maybe. But it's been like I said, it's been a great start to the year, and I have to say that that the support back home from everybody, a lot of people in this room, has been tremendous, and I can't thank you guys all enough. It's been another fantastic event, Norris. You've been stellar as usual. Congratulations to all the inductees, and yeah, we're a couple races into year 2 for me, and hopefully I'm at this gig long enough to go through a couple ex-wives to tell all these stories to. So. Thanks very much for having me up, and have a great night, everybody. Cheers.
How wonderful. Well, now that we have everybody's attention, we will continue with the program, even though dessert is still being served. I would like to ask the chairman of the board of the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, Dr. Hugh Scully, to come to the platform for the Michael Andretti Induction Ceremony. Dr. Scully.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very nice evening, and I think we're about to realize more success. Michael Andretti has had a remarkable career, and it's a great, as you know, racing family with Mario with all that he's done, Michael, who's won the race here in Toronto 7 times, and as a team owner has been a champion and now really stimulating Canadian interest in hiring James with his great sense of humor, but great driving ability as a driver for the team. The international inductee category rests with the chairman and with the board, and there was just no discussion really, Michael, about the choice for this year. With all of the things that you've done both as a racer in Canada and as a team, and the resurrection of the IndyCar racing here in Toronto, because we lost it, as you know, several years ago, and you were very instrumental in resurrecting that whole issue. And so it was with unanimous support that your nomination was brought forward and accepted for the induction this year as the international inductee to the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. Now, that having been said, Norris, there is a video that should be played, yes? Okay, so we'll have the video with it. Thank you very much.
He was born into one of the most prominent racing families, and he continued with his family's tradition of success both on and off the racetrack. A native of Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Andretti never lived in the shadow of his iconic racing father Mario, proving he could drive and win with his own style as a dominant competitor in the kart PPG IndyCar era. He started in Formula V's and the Atlantic Series, and Michael also raced at Le Mans before joining up with Maury Cranes and Craco Racing in 1983, launching an all-star career in IndyCars, a majority of his success coming with Carl Haas and acting legend Paul Newman at Newman Haas Racing. He won a record-setting 42 races, including a record 7 at the former Molson Indy Toronto between 1989 and 2001, going back-to-back with wins 3 times. that record still stands. And having competed on the Toronto Lakeshore since that first Indy in '86, Michael has enjoyed a very special relationship with Canadian race fans that would resurface later on the business side. In 1991, after winning the Kart Series Championship, he did a stint in Formula One with McLaren, teamed with another racing legend, Ayrton Senna. After retiring temporarily from driving in 2003, Andretti became partners in Team Green. As a team owner with drivers Dario Franchitti, Tony Kanaan, and Danica Patrick, he won the IRL Championship back-to-back in 2004 and again in 2005. That year included the elusive Indianapolis 500. But not content to stay behind the wall to coach his race team, Andretti donned the racing gloves and helmet once again and drove in 2006 and 2007 with a third at Indianapolis before retiring once again to run the team. He also guided the budding career of his son Marco, who debuted in 2006, becoming an IndyCar star in his own right for the past several years under the tutelage of his father and grandfather. On the business side of the company, Michael purchased the assets of the Toronto Indy, resurrecting this important race, keeping it alive on the IndyCar schedule, once again illustrating his fondness for the country. Michael said recently, "I'm extremely honored to be inducted into the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. Throughout my career, I've always considered Canada to be my second home. The Canadian race fans have been some of the most supportive I've ever seen, and I'm thrilled that almost a quarter of my career wins came on Canadian soil and in front of such enthusiastic fans." And further to that, Andretti assigned one of the series' rising stars, 2011 IndyCar Rookie of the Year James Hinchcliffe of Oakville, to drive one of the team's Dallara Chevys in the IZOD IndyCar Series this season. And after the first two races of the brand new campaign, Hinchcliffe ranked a very solid fourth in the point standings. Ladies and gentlemen, as one of the most successful and prominent drivers ever to race in this country, the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame is delighted and proud to induct in the 2012 International category, carrying on his family's legendary status in auto racing, Michael Mario Andretti.
Thank you very much. They said everything that I was going to say. First of all, thank you very much. This is a very big honor for me. As they said up there, I do consider Canada my second home. It's just been such a fantastic part of my career. We've had almost 25% of my wins have come here on Canadian soil. So. It's quite an honor, and thank you for all the support that you've given me and to have me up here. Thank you, Hugh, for having me come up and be a part of this. And I also want to say, that I want to congratulate all the other inductees. I think it shows, the history that racing has here up in Canada is so very deep, and I gotta say that I honestly feel that Canadian fans are the best fans in the world. I've raced everywhere in the world, and from the very first time I raced here, I always felt welcome here, and was always impressed by the knowledge of the fans, and they really seem to appreciate what we're doing out there, and that makes you drive even harder when you are out there, when you feel that support. So I don't think it's by accident that I've had such great success here, especially here in Toronto, and it just was always a good feeling driving here. Also, I want to say I love Canada so much that we had to finally hire a Canadian driver. So. He's been a breath of fresh air. That's all I can tell you. He's just been great to have on the team. Our drivers are just they're like this, and I think because of that, you're gonna find that our team is just gonna get better and better. we're going to get some wins out there very soon, I think. And I think James is about ready to get his. He got his first podium last weekend. I smell a win coming real soon. So again, thank you. This means an awful lot to me. I really appreciate it. I love coming to Canada. And again, you know, it wasn't by mistake that I really wanted to get Toronto back on the schedule, because I really believed in it, and I really believe in Canada and the fans, and they deserve having that race back on the schedule, and that's why I did it. So, so thank you, and enjoy the rest of the night, so thank you.
Michael, we were told before you came that you were a man of few words. And so that's why we had all these questions that you were supposed to answer, and then you went and talked for 15 minutes. So if you wouldn't mind bearing with us for just a couple of minutes, we do have some here.
I'm afraid to see them.
Well, the first question comes from James Hinchcliffe, who says, "So boss, what's the toughest part of having me drive for you?" I don't think that James actually filled this out. Somebody else did.
I did.
God. Having to listen to all your jokes, I guess. So I guess that'll be it.
You're going to have to get rid of a driver like a lot of us have gotten rid of the women. Okay, here's a great one. Who takes longer to get ready for a race, James or Danica?
Wow, I think it's a toss-up.
Here's one. What part of motorsport do you like best? Driving, owning, or promoting? That's a good question.
That's a very good question. I gotta say I enjoyed every aspect of it, and I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world that I've been able to do all parts of it. And each one has its own challenge, and and they're all very difficult in their own way. They all take a big effort, and what was my favorite? I don't know. I guess in the end, it's still the driving.
Now, this is a question for you as a father. How difficult was it for you to watch Marco race Indy for the first time? And how do you think he will be when he has a son racing?
Hopefully, you won't have one soon. To answer that question, it's pretty easy. I made sure that when we ran his first Indy 500 that I was in the race, so I wouldn't have to watch him.
Paul Cook wants to know, what is your most memorable moment as a racing driver?
That's a tough one. I mean, I've been so blessed to have so many great memories. You know, I think the one that I guess sticks out in my head is the '91 Laguna Seca race, which was the last race of the year, where I was able to qualify pole, led every lap of the race, won the championship, and my dad was on the podium there to share it with me.
Was there anyone in the Andretti family not interested in motorsport?
Yeah, I mean, my daughter, for one, she's really not into it too much. My sister never really got into it, which I'm quite surprised, because if you see her on motorcycle and stuff, she was always quite good. I was surprised she didn't pick it up, but, you know, those are the two.
Last one, and we really want to thank Michael for being so generous with his time. He is going to go to the back of the room and sign autographs. This last one, July 31st race date, Oswego Speedway, World of Outlaws. Tony Stewart's coming. Glenn Stiers, the promoter, wants to know if you want to run a 410 World of Outlaws sprint car and take on Tony Stewart.
Hell no, I'm smarter than that.
That almost almost wraps up our evening, I'm going to ask Dr. Scully to come up in a moment and officially declare the induction gala over. Just a couple of orders of business. We've got the silent auction open for about another 20 minutes. And so there's still a few moments to get back there and bid on some of that great stuff. We have centerpieces in the table, on the tables rather. The person whose birthday is closest to April 21st can take the centerpiece home with them. And thank you all so much for coming. It's been a pleasure doing this job again this year. And to officially declare the evening complete, Dr. Scully.
You would all agree it's been a memorable evening. Firstly, congratulations to the Canadian inductees. And Michael, thank you very much for coming and participating in the evening. And as always happens in these presentations, I blew it earlier. Steve Snowden is a very active contributing member to the board, and I forgot to mention his name earlier, and I just do that now. But at the end of the day, let me thank all of you for coming. This is tremendous support from our point of view from the Motorsport Heritage Foundation and the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame. And we look forward to participating with you in the future as we pursue this further. Thank you very much for being here, and to echo what Norris has said, there are many items back there that are certainly worth bidding on. And Norris, I would be remiss at the end if I didn't say thank you personally and on behalf of all present to your great job as a Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
And one final word, with all the inductees, go to the back of the auditorium for a group picture. And that includes Michael, if you would not mind going back, Michael. Oh, pardon me, it's here at the front. I said earlier I was having a bad night. This just put the capper on it. This way, not that way. Thank you very much. ladies and gentlemen, one until the auction will be complete. And by the way, we're here and having your cash for your purchase. Lawrence, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was that producer in all the television races that you were in.
Oh, really? Okay.
Six, 5, 4, 3,
Thank you very much,
2, 1. The silent auction is over. Congratulations to the winners.